Hello, and welcome to our COP28 in Focus series on Energy Connect with me, Julian Walker, as I speak to leading experts around the world in the lead up to COP28, taking place in the UAE in Dubai at the end of this month. I'm pleased to welcome to today's episode, Jiří Waldhauser, partner at Boston Consulting Group, for today's COP28 Focus episode, in which we'll be looking at the importance of renewables. Thank you so much for joining me, Jiří.
Nice to see you again, Julian, and thanks a lot for having me.
Great. Now, let's dive straight into today's topic, as we said, was about a focus on renewables. In your view, to have any chance of limiting global warming to the 1.5 degrees, we really must be looking at a massive scale-up of renewables, in your view?
Indeed, we need to start significantly reducing greenhouse gas emissions from today's roughly 50 billion tons per annum down to net zero by 2050, and power generation is one of the main contributors to these emissions. So we will need to massively build out renewable generation capacity globally to provide zero carbon bulk power supply, but we'll also need to invest heavily in other power infrastructure assets to ensure system stability as the share of volatile renewables in energy systems increases.
Absolutely. And just what, I mean, you mentioned some of the numbers, but I'd like to get a bit more on, in your view, what do you think needs to be hit in terms of renewable generation capacity in the future? And again, how quickly can it be done? And I think that's one of the big hurdles.
Absolutely. So let me try to give you a few numbers. So the latest World Energy Transition Outlook by ARENA indicates that by 2030, 11 terawatts of renewables will have to be installed globally to stay on the 1.5 degrees trajectory. And today, globally, we have roughly around 3.5 terawatts. So if you do the math, we'll need to roughly triple the installed capacity. And bulk of the additions will be driven by wind and solar. So out of the 11 terawatts that I mentioned, roughly 5 will have to, or in excess of 5 will have to come from solar, and more than 3 from wind. And if you think about it, it was just last year that we celebrated the first terawatt for solar, and it was just a couple of months ago that we celebrated the first globally installed terawatt for wind. And we have only 6 years to go to install another 4 or in excess of 4 for solar and in excess of 2 for wind. So that really shows the magnitude of the challenge ahead of us in the coming years.
Absolutely. And, one way to meet it are different regions taking up the mantle, either around solar or wind in different speeds and developments, I assume. And, we're here in the Middle East. How's the Middle East region moving?
The Middle East is definitely moving fast. Is it moving fast enough? I mean, we'll probably need to accelerate even more. But if you look at where we are today and compare it to where we were 10 years ago, you will see the rapid change. I mean, probably, the key countries in the region made credible commitments to confront climate change. Here in the UAE, which is hosting COP28 this year, we are planning to reach net zero by 2050. Saudi, the biggest economy in the region, by 2060. So the commitments are there, but what is even more important for me is that it's not only these commitments, but that we also see a strong pipeline of renewable projects underpinning these commitments. And it is really in the Middle East where we have seen and where we are seeing many renewable world records, like the lowest LCOE ever achieved in a renewable auction, the biggest solar park in the world, the biggest electrolyzer, etc., etc. So the IEA expects to see around 50 gigawatts of combined installed wind and solar capacity in the Middle East by 2030. And I'm an optimist. I hope it's going to be even more.
Oh, that's really interesting to hear, Jiří. And in your view, how will COP28 help fast-track renewable energy adoption then?
The main purpose of COP is to help build consensus among stakeholders to drive climate action and further accelerate emission reductions. It is, where the world take stock of the progress on the Paris Agreement made to date. And unfortunately, or fortunately, also a moment to remind ourselves of some really unpleasant truths. But first of all, COP is a platform for key decision makers to come together and take decisions on how we should double down on our efforts to slow down the global warming.
Yes, absolutely. And I wanted to go back to one area around renewables, size, but size of either the solar farm. You said they had the biggest one here. How important is that? And also that could decide where renewables are going to take off around the world.
Yeah, no, scale is really important in renewables. As companies build scale, they gain a disproportionate advantage and move along a really steep learning curve compared to their competitors. So just to make this, scale effect more tangible, Julian, imagine you are a large renewable developer, which means that you will achieve more favorable contracts for key equipment from your suppliers. You will get lower unit prices from your EPC and O&M contractors because simply you procure a higher volume. That means that you will be able to produce power more cheaply, achieve a lower LCOE, which means that you will be able to bid in the renewable auctions lower and secure a higher volume of deals. Yeah, with more deals down your belt, you build your brand, you build your capabilities, and again, you get access to higher quality of deals. You increase the project success rates, etc., etc. So we really see a compounding effect here, and this is why I always say that size matters in renewables.
Absolutely, Jiří. And you touched on there also about some of the challenges or hurdles that probably need to be addressed when it comes to the scaling up of renewables. What are one of the two biggest hurdles you see, and how are they being addressed, or if not?
That's a really good question. So a few things that come in mind. The first one would probably be securing and de-risking your supply chain. 2 years ago, when during COVID, when China, which is the world's biggest producer of solar PV panels, went into a lockdown, many of the solar projects around the world got disrupted, which really shows the need for robustness of your supply chain, and that would for sure be one key ingredient for success. Another one would be securing access to increasingly scarce land and getting all the required permits. I mean, it's like as you know, large-scale renewables, be it wind or solar, take a lot of space, and it's not only the renewables; it's also the related infrastructure. So often we face the issue of lack of land and also resistance from local communities. So really securing land for these assets and streamlining the permitting process is crucial. And Julian, maybe I know you asked for two, but like one more thing comes in mind, and it is, when we talk about scaling up renewables, it's not only the wind parks and the solar parks, but we also need to beef up the capacity of our grids. We need to add flexibility to the power system, and we need to make ultimately consumers aware that the price of electricity during the day is not stable, and we need to adjust their consumption patterns to match better the renewable production patterns.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's sort of education and awareness is going to be key going forward. And also, I assume that will that will be an element of COP28 as well. Bringing everyone together, but also making statements or making more awareness to the public about, some of the hard truths, as you said earlier on, coming up.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, everybody would agree to the fact that we need to, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but few would probably agree to have a huge wind park behind their house, right? And that's the conundrum that we are facing.
Absolutely. Well, Jiří, I wanted to thank you for taking the time out to join me on this latest episode in our COP28 in Focus series, and really good to get your insights into the renewable industry and the importance and the need for it to scale up in size in the lead up to COP28.
Thanks a lot, Julian. It was great to be here.
Thanks everyone for watching, and I look forward to bringing you more engaging discussions in our COP28 focus series in the coming weeks.